Being Real, OG group. Weeks don't matter. Part 2 of technically part 1. It doesn't really matter what part it is. It doesn't matter when you look at it later. So this is World Religions. We did the intro. This is the Islam topic. There you go. So not a part 1, part 2, part 3. World Religions intro. Then each one of the religions we do will have the religion itself. And maybe there's a part 1, part 2, part 3 of specific ones. And then we'll do that. But when somebody looks at the site later, which hopefully people do, because why else would I be spending the time putting it out here? Anyway, when they go to look at it later, they might just want to learn more about a specific religion or see what we discussed. And as I had mentioned in like the year in review video for Being Real and 122 and all that, the goal is to have resources on 122 for somebody to be able to go to after the fact. One of those resources will be this video. They can watch and see what people were kind of discussing, and look at some scripture and some comparisons and whatever we run into or look at. They can look at this as a reference for that. But we're also going to put other things out there as we find them to make it a more usable resource. One of those places that they could go, they know they could go and they could find more details. Do my best to make sure it's unbiased, as much as possible, or at least from multiple sources, and not just looking at one side of things. That's the goal. Okay, anyway, back to the program. I have not worn this Power of One shirt in a very long time. Let's see, let's take it back. Can you see it? I think you can see it. Anyway, and I don't know if you did that a couple videos ago. I don't think I have it posted yet, but on my other channel, I have how I did that. Just thought of like stuff I laid around. It was kind of funny because my daughter came out and saw that and started going like, "How did you do that?" Like I got a video that'll show you exactly what I did. Don't break it. Anyway, I said I was going to get back to the program. Let's do it now. So on 6/20, we met to talk about the Islam religion. We watched a video that's 45 minutes long. That was, when I watched it, was okay. But it's very different watching it in a group. And everybody does things differently or learns differently. So anyway, it was something that we had talked about the prior time we met. We talked about how we were going to approach this. Nobody really had any ideas. So my thought was we'll watch this 45-minute video and then we'll talk the second 45 minutes, reviewing kind of what the video said, making sure everybody, that took notes during the video, that we had that and we could compare notes. And then once we had a pretty good feel for the main points and dates and those things, then we could roll into like how it compares. Didn't quite work out that way, but whatever. So that's what we try to do. And then one of the other things that we looked at was just a quick intro to Nabeel Qureshi video series on Right Now Media, and that's in the content thread. If you have the Being Real app on your phone, you can look at the content thread for this group, and it's out there. It's right there. You can just click on it and watch it. And as we mentioned in the group, Nabeel was a Muslim and ended up being a Christian apologist. He did apologetics. And apologetics are defending of the faith. So he ended up becoming a Christian apologist. He ended up defending the Christian faith, grew up Muslim. But it wasn't like one conversation with somebody. It took I believe it was 3.5 years. Anyway, on Right Now Media, they have a series where he kind of talks about that and helps people to understand the Muslim religion and what worked for him and just in general the ways to go about it. Because he had, like he said, he had a very patient and good friend that spent time with him, didn't beat him over the head, tell him he was wrong or any of that stuff. It was just coming from somebody that made that conversion, not only made that conversion, but then started defending the faith, which is interesting because another couple people that I reference and we've used their stuff in Being Real were atheists or something else before they became Christians. And it's just a very different perspective and understanding. And it's also interesting to know that those folks seem to be more, are almost always more well-versed in Christianity than people that claim to be Christians. And not only that, they go to the extent of defending the faith, but in the right way. And it's just an interesting, I don't know if people will put that together yet, but most of the stuff we look at from people that are outside of our religion or started outside of our religion. I wouldn't say our religion because I don't consider myself that. But anyway, the point is I'm just going to say it that way. I say we like there's a mouse in my pocket, but I try to get content that is as neutral as possible, unbiased, but also from somebody that's experienced it. Because we haven't experienced a lot of stuff, let's be honest. If you grew up in the same religion and only know that one religion, you haven't experienced stuff. So Being Real, this is an opportunity as we look at world religions to experience what others have grown up with in a safe environment. Right? One of the other things that I really haven't talked about what we talked about, but sort of, there's just a lot to it. And there's, I'm not going to go off on a tangent anymore. So we looked at Islam, and the other thing that I've discussed when we started this is, I was very clear on how I approach. I'm using I a lot more because I'm just flat out telling you it's me. I look at 3 sources. I don't look at one source. I don't look at a skewed source. If the truth is the truth, it's going to be the truth no matter how many different views you look at. It's still going to be it's still going to come back to the truth if it's the truth. And if I were to just take one thing and read it, well, now that's different because that could slant this. Now I do this in everything I do. Some people it drives nuts that I research and make sure I know what I'm talking about or what I'm thinking. Less about what I'm talking about, actually. Usually I don't talk about it. I am here. But I just want to know the real. And the only way I know to do that is to look at multiple perspectives, multiple, as unbiased as possible perspectives, or you look at biased perspectives but opposite sides, and then you have a neutral, right? Even in learning computer stuff, which is my trade and has been for a long time, I never take one thing and say, oh, they said to do this. I always look at multiple things. I always check all that. It's just, I guess it's a sickness. I don't know. But the point is, I'm trying to teach others to do that. Because if you only have one view, if you only have one resource, and you really want to use a resource that conforms to what you think, you're never really going to know if that's really what you think. Well, I guess you'll know if it's what you think, but you'll never, you just have to have different perspectives. All right? It's tiring. It's hard. It's hard to get people, it's just hard. I don't know. But I know people think that, listen. It's called Being Real. not looking at one viewpoint. Not, we're really trying to be real about all this stuff. And to do that, you got to be willing to go places you don't want to go. You've got to be unsettled. Because that unsettling is what allows you to settle and to build a foundation and to understand things, but understand them from different perspectives. Let me put it to you this way. I am going on a tangent. Let me put it to you this way. I asked my son this. We actually had a really good conversation about this, and I laid it out for him, and I said, okay, well, if you have two people, and one person goes to church every Sunday. Now you see them outside of church, and they don't really act the way they should. They're swearing, or they're not treating people well, or whatever the case may be. So, again, he's 13, so I'm putting it in perspective for him, knowing what he believes to be bad and things like that. So I gave him that, and I said, and you have another person that's really caring and does things for others, and laid it out that way. I said, of those two people, which one would you be more willing to learn from, or would you be more attracted to like what they're doing? Always like the one that's being nice. I said, okay, now what if the person going to church once a week, but not acting it out, is Christian, and the other one is atheist? He's like, I'd still want to know more about the one that's treating people right. Oh, I said, now you can reverse those too. So if it was a Christian that was doing it, you'd go to their church, or you'd learn more about where they're coming from. Yeah. Okay. So there's a question, as we looked at Islam, one of the things that surprised a lot of people is it's number 2 religion in the U.S. What? Yeah. Actually, atheism might be number 2. No religion might be number 2. And it's number 3. They're the top 3. Christianity, no religion, and Islam. Top 3 in the U.S. And the Christian religion is going like this. And the Muslim religion is going like this. And the atheist, or the non-religious, I shouldn't say atheist, it's different. The non-religious is going like this. At some point, we kind of have to pay attention to that and ask the questions that we should be asking. So I think that's a bit scary for sure for the people in the group, because they didn't know that. Again, if you only know what you know in the place that you're going and don't look outside of that in anything. I'm not picking on anybody, but just you have to look outside of that to really have an understanding. Be in the world, but not of the world. Because if you're in the world, you have an understanding of what's going on. Don't be of the world. Don't conform to the world. But knowing it is important. Just saying. Interestingly enough, had a couple different conversations. So even though the group meeting didn't go quite as planned, it sparked some good discussions. And it's interesting to hear there. Somebody I talked to is like, oh yeah, I work with a Muslim, and he's kind of the same level with me as where I'm at, and but we ended up having a conversation, and I was just I asked him about it's close to one of their holidays, and then he made a comment, and I was like, oh, tell me more about that, and they just had a conversation. Now and this is what he said. He said, now he, myself, and another person, we actually go deep into talking about faith. We also understand that we have some differences, but they're good conversations, and where we disagree, we do it gracefully, right? We just say, oh yeah, well we're a little bit different there, but it doesn't stop them from being friends. It doesn't stop them from having those discussions. Then you get other stories. But anyway, and I go back to the Nabil thing where, he said, seeking God, finding Allah, seeking Allah, finding God, seeking Allah, finding Jesus, seeking Jesus, seeking whatever. It's in the content thread. pretty cool. But he talks about, like I said earlier, he had a friend that started talking to him and spent 3 years, they just had discussions. This guy was a defender of the Christian religion, Christian faith. I don't want to say religion, because I don't believe the faith, because just the way he presents himself is different. Now he's passed on. He had a bout with cancer, but I've seen his stuff in the past, and they just, he's just a good speaker, genuine, just hopefully you watch some of it. It's multiple sessions, 26 to 29 minutes on Right Now Media. It could be elsewhere too, but that's where it is for us because it's easy to access. All right, so we went through, and the goal was to get all the facts of Islam and then kind of take those and then compare them and then do that. But, we got some of them, 7th century, 20 years. I'm not going to give you all this. Muhammad was like 570. The thing that kind of interested people, we went through it last time, but again, this time the other thing I did, I'll say me because, I don't know, I might get in trouble for it, but I was reading certain things from the Quran, sutras and that are related to Jesus and things of that sort. So, yeah, in case you weren't at the group, I want to make sure that didn't just slip right by you. The Quran speaks of Jesus. Prophet even speaks of the Virgin Mary giving birth. Yeah. It's amazing what you learn when you're looking at other things. So that's, we talked about that a little bit, went into some other things. And, like I said, it just didn't go quite as planned, which happens. Part of that is probably the format. Again, we were just trying it. I won't do a 45-minute video again. The intent going in was that nobody had done research. So we were going to watch the video, so that was our research in the group, which is not really something I like to do. I want people to be prepared ahead of time, which we'll get into something a little bit later. Okay, so we did Islam. It's part 1. We're going to call this part 1. You know why? Because I believe there needs to be part 2. No question. We need to do some of our own research on our own, gather back up, discuss things openly, lay it on a table, have a better understanding, not only of Islam and Muslims, but of ourselves and what our foundation is and what Scripture truly says about certain things. Not one thing, multiple things. So we really kind of have to have that that meeting to discuss those things and kind of hash through some of that collectively. So that's what's going to happen the next time we meet, which will be July 11th. The July 4th, we're not going to meet on July 4th, and this week we're not going to meet due to conflicts. And honestly, need a break. So we're going to reset, shift to bi-weekly meetings. We're also changing the location, which if you have the Right Now Media app, you know what that location is, and we're also shifting the times a bit. So you'll know what those are. If you have the Right Now Media app and you look at the Being Real OG group, already done, already there. The next 2 meetings, maybe 4, I don't remember at this point, are set. And they're not in the same location. They're in a slightly different location, but really close. And we're going to do that. Going to meet more in neutral territory. We're going to have those open discussions. Maybe we have a couple other people that can jump in the next couple weeks too, and do some research and then come as well to be part. So that's what we're going to do. So the next couple weeks, continue to research Islam, also research Scripture, our Scripture, and see where the differences lie, and also see what our Scripture says about religion, and some different things like that. So, I mean, it's going to be it'll be an interesting thing. Like, look at how religion was treated in Jesus' day. Look at how he interacted with those leaders. Look at, I don't know. You know what? I don't know. look at some stuff related to religion, related to the rules and the dogma and the doctrines of, Islam and Christianity. Who knows where that'll take you? I don't know. Be kind of cool to get together and see. So that's what we're doing. I also need to update the website for Right Now Media. I have where you can set up your account and how to do it, but I'm going to add like how to install the app so you can have the app set up on your phone. And I will send out a text update to a link to that page. So if you don't have the app, you can walk through it and do it, because that's the only way we're going to communicate going into the following meeting. The text will be no longer. We're getting rid of that. There's a cost, and the cost is going up. And we already have Right Now Media, and Right Now Media has implemented this new group structure within it, which has some other cool features and also allows us to have conversation threads, which we'll be testing in the coming week. Because I'll be throwing some stuff out there in that conversation thread, and that's also something that'll happen and can happen from anybody in the group in between meetings. So we can throw a question out there if we have it, or we can share something that we found, and that's just allows us to continue learning as we move forward. I know some people are like, oh, I found this and it's here, and I'm like, where? Now we have that ability to do that. So we'll get more in tune with all that stuff as we move forward. So next couple weeks, shifting some things, but not losing the purpose of all this for sure. So sorry, this is a bit long. I'm sure I'm going to do a couple edits here, or I did a couple edits to shorten it a little bit, but thanks for watching. Keep being real.